Good day to you, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Film Focus, episode 208, my top 10 films of 2025. Well, hello there, ladies and gentlemen of the North, South, East, and West, and welcome to another episode of Film Focus. I'm your host, Hybris55, and I'm glad that you decided to join me once again for some film-related discussion. And once again, we are at the end of another year. At the time of recording, it is December 31st, and we are around just under 12 hours from the new year. Woo. But yeah, as per usual, I would like to share with you my top 10 films of 2025. Now, 2025 has been an interesting year for films, as I think the first part of the year was pretty dry, save for a few moments here and there. Once we got into the summer, things definitely got more interesting. It got a little quiet towards the tail end of the summer, and then had a few things here and there between, I'd say, September to November, where things picked up a little bit. I wouldn't say it's been like an amazing year for film, but there have definitely been some very high points for me. I also have to admit that there is a lot of films that I didn't get around to seeing this year, whether it was in the cinema or on streaming. But I will share with you my top 10, as per usual, going from 10 to 1. Some of the films I will be talking about, I didn't actually do dedicated episodes for, again, just due to time constraints and all that nonsense. Beyond that, I will mention also my runner-ups, my films that were close to still being entries but got bumped off for whatever reason. So without further ado, let's jump in. So when it comes to the first of the runner-ups, it's Bring Her Back. Now, I thought that this film was going to be good, but I wasn't sure if it was going to get a showing in my cinema, just because certain horror films of a certain level either will get a very limited window in our cinema, or they just won't show up at all and I'll have to go to another town. But Bring Her Back, I'd heard a lot of interesting things about it when it came out over in the States. My uncle, who lives in Canada, told me some interesting things about it as well. So I was like, okay, let me see if I can get around to watching it. And my God, that film was incredible. Incredible in the sense that it is just very intense. There's a lot of really graphic imagery, and as someone who is mostly desensitized to violence in movies and certain stuff in horror films, there was stuff that was even making me wince. But also the story was very interesting and compelling. You felt tense a lot of the time. You were just trying to figure out how the people in this situation would, make their way out of it. The young actors were good. Sally Hawkins was incredible. And again, there were just moments in this film that I ended up talking to certain other people who'd seen it, where they were just like, do you remember this bit and this bit? And like, oh my God, what about that? And it's mental. I am sad that it didn't make my top 10, but there was just a few other entries on my list that just pushed it over. And then there was Thunderbolts, the Marvel film, which is also known as the New Avengers. If you saw the film, you understand the context. But I had hope, but it was probably my least, anticipated film of the Marvel films that would be showing up in 2025. But it's arguably their best one. I like the Marvel films where they're character focused, where they're fighting each other and dealing with bad guys, but also dealing with their emotions and the complex character dynamics. And while there's a few things that I would have changed for the film to make it, bump a little higher, I would say Thunderbolts was really good. And there's also Weapons. I quite like that film. As someone who thought Barbarian was good but overhyped, Weapons was more my kind of jam. The style was storytelling, the characters, the nature of how events played out, the atmosphere was cool, and the unintentional humor that came out of it, which was good as well. It made me a fan of Zach Cregger a lot more, and it made me more interested to see what he's going to do with the upcoming Resident Evil film he's working on. And then you have Ballerina, the John Wick spin-off that featured Ana de Armas. I had been looking forward to this film for quite some time, and the first trailer looked okay. The second trailer looked way more fun. And then watching the film itself in its entirety, man, that's genuinely one of my favorite experiences in the cinema, just for the absurdity, creativity, and madness that came with the action scenes. Ana de Armas proves that she is pretty good with the action stuff, following on from what she did in No Time to Die. I thought the story was fun. It was a nice tale of revenge. John Wick was featured just enough, but not to the point where he'd overshadow the movie. And to expand the world of John Wick and, give a little bit more context of what's going on surrounding, that world of assassination. It was pretty cool. And then there's Predator Badlands. As I said in the previous episode of the podcast, this was a film that I enjoyed but was a little lukewarm on in my first screening. But watching it the second time, I did end up appreciating it a lot more. I find it very interesting that there were so many firsts for the franchise that was attempted in this film in terms of making the Yautja the protagonist, having the synths from the Wayland Yutani Corporation put into this film, and seeing more of the Predator culture explored, the cool aesthetic of the planet and the monsters that end up showing up in the movie. The action was cool and the film score was great. I had a good time with this movie. Just didn't sing as high as I would hope, but at the same time, I'm still very hyped to see what comes with the next entry in the Predator franchise. Alright, so now we get into the top 10 proper. At number 10 we have Companion. Now this was the first film that I'd seen during the early side of 2025 that really grabbed me. I was intrigued from the time I saw the trailer, and while that gave away an element of the film, which some people said sort of ruins the film, for me I still found the film fascinating, cool, strange, and very enjoyable. I thought Sophie Thatcher did an incredible job in the central role, and Jack Quaid was also very good. And yes, if you can, try to see this film blind, because there are some twists and turns and revelations that are very interesting. But even if you see the first trailer, it doesn't give away some of the more unique elements of the film that become apparent as certain reveals come to play, essentially. But yeah, Companion, I think it might be better than some of the entries higher up on this list, but I still had to put it on here. At number 9 you have Superman, one of the films I ended up seeing in IMAX this year, and I was glad that I did, because Superman was a good time. James Gunn brought his unique elements to this character, but what I really enjoyed about the film was that it felt fun, it felt hopeful. I enjoyed the performances from the central cast, including obviously Nicholas Hoult, Rachel Brosnahan, and obviously David Corenswet. I thought the action was really fun. There was definitely some interesting things that we'd never seen Superman do in an action element before in some of the previous stuff. And the way that the wider DC characters had been slowly integrated into this was cool. While I would say that there were certain elements with the plot and characters that could have used some refinement, otherwise it was a good new entry into this DC universe, and I'm very curious to see what happens with future entries. And then at number 8 we have Fantastic Four, and yeah, it was really, really fun. This new Fantastic Four was almost everything that I'd hoped it would be. Just to have a Fantastic Four that felt like an actual family, where the family dynamic was front and center, as well as them being superheroes, that was cool. I thought that the film score from Michael Giacchino was great. The primary cast were lovely, and while I do feel like certain characters didn't get the same sort of quality screen time or enough to do as much as others, I feel like the integration of Silver Surfer and Galactus in this film was way more impressive than what we got in previous entries. Now, no hate against the Rise of the Silver Surfer that we got in 2007. He was fine. It was just that Galactus, the big fart cloud that we got in that film, was not good. But this new Galactus was great. I really enjoyed what we got with that film, and I'm very curious to see what happens with them in the MCU going ahead. And then at number 7 we have 100 Meters. This was an anime film that I found out about during the summer, and then ended up seeing back in the middle of November, I believe. And it was a really cool and well-made movie. It was about these two dudes who met up at school who had the capability to run. One had a refined technique while the other one needed a little bit more work. But we follow their adventures as they grow older and see the highs and lows that come with competing in track and field, and see the mental and physical issues that come with participating in that sport. There's also a bunch of other people that surround them that are in and out of their lives that have contributed to their lives in various different ways. And the animation, it's primarily 2D, but I swear that there were elements that looked like they were rotoscoped or possibly like 3D with like that sort of 2D overlay kind of vibe. But it was a really well made movie. It was very compelling, very good, and if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. And then at number 6, we have Chainsaw Man, the Raze arc. At least I think that's how that full title is. But yeah, I'd almost forgotten a lot of what happened in the plot, so I had to watch a plot summary before going into the movie, which definitely helped. But it's an interesting film because part of it is like a sort of slice of life character focused thing, but then you have the big action spectacle that takes place once certain events take place, and oh my god, the film is gorgeous. Just from an animation point of view, just when you think you've seen everything that the anime industry can throw at you in terms of spectacle, in terms of large scale chaos, in terms of intricate animation that have various different perspectives and fluidity, and the variety in the way in which people can use their abilities to mess people up. This film just said, you think you've seen everything? Well, hold on to your seat because we're just going to throw a roller coaster of visual splendor at your eyes. And it was glorious. I was just wowed. And yeah, again, it was a really cool character progression for Denji, as well as some of the other key characters in the story as well. But mate, the spectacle alone was just worth the price of admission. So yeah, it was a good time. And then at number 5, we have Predator, Killer of Killers. As I was waiting for Predator Badlands to come out, this film was announced out of nowhere. It just showed up and ended up being so good. With my issues with some of the animation here and there, and one of the stories not being as compelling as the others, the fact that we got this anthology story where we got to go to 3 different eras and have 3 different characters take on different predators under various different circumstances and still have it be compelling, really fun to watch, and adhere to the principles of the Predator franchise while also doing some new and interesting things. It was great. Again, the visual side of things was really good. Each era had a cool color palette, art direction. All the characters did some cool things. And again, without going into the area spoilers, there was more to the film beyond what was shown in the trailers and what it signals potentially for the franchise going ahead. Ooh, so hyped. And then at number 4, we have K-pop Demon Hunters. Now, I know this film sort of took over the world for a little while, and it's for good reason. The film is just really well made. I knew from the time it was announced that this film, was being worked on by Sony Animation, considering what they did with the Spider-Verse films, it was going to be good, but I waited 2 weeks before this film came out just to, finally give it a watch, and mate, it was great. It's such a cool and unique idea. I thought the characters, Rumi, Mira, and Zoe were great. The Soldier Boys were fun. The color scheme, the art direction was great. The animation was super fluid and dynamic. The action scenes were so good. The music was super catchy. I was just a fan. I was converted. So I'm very much looking forward to a sequel. And then at number 3, we have One Battle After Another. I had been looking forward to this film for ages, considering that Paul Thomas Anderson was finally coming out of retirement. I was just like, okay, what is he going to do? He assembled a really cool cast, and this story was really cool. There was an interesting balance between, the serious nature of the situations that was taking place and some of the scenarios the characters were dealing with, but there was also some really good, well-timed humor in there as well. I thought Leonardo DiCaprio was great. Also, Tiana Taylor was really good too. The lady who played their daughter was also good. Benicio del Toro is always a good time. And Sean Penn, oh my god, that role for him was just very unexpected, but very, very good. And towards the end of the film, without going into spoilers, there's a portion of this film which has the most tension in an unexpected scenario that just goes on for a while, and you're just like, God, how is this going to play out? It's mental. But yeah, for a film with that long of a duration, it felt like it breezed by in real time. So if you haven't seen One Battle After Another, definitely give it a watch. And then at number 2, we have The Long Walk. Now, this was a film that I had been keeping my eye on for a little while just because my boy David Johnson was in there. And again, if you had listened to my podcast, then you'd know I was a big fan of him from Rye Lane and Alien Romulus. And he was incredible in this film, along with the rest of the cast who were, put in this film. Obviously, from the description, you have A Long Walk, which basically you have this weird version of a dystopian future where a bunch of people from a bunch of towns all decide to participate in this long walk where they would get some sort of fancy prize, a big wish at the end. But the thing is, you have to continuously walk or you die, essentially. And the film, once you see it in action, you start to see the severity and the shocking nature of how these situations play out, the penalties at play, and the crazy situations that these guys have to walk through. You get really attached to the characters, and as things start to, well, as the people start to whittle down, you start to fear for them, and you really start to grow attached. So again, really great performances from everybody involved. I also liked, Mark Hamill in there as well. A good time. And then my number one film of 2025, which hasn't budged since the time it showed up, was Sinners. Sinners, oh, what a lovely film that is. And Ryan Coogler, thank you for, developing and making this film happen. I've been a fan of Coogler, obviously, since he showed up with Fruitvale Station in 2013, and he's gone from strength to strength. And with this film, it was such a fun film. And obviously, while it's crazy scary in the sort of conventional way that certain people look for in horror films, I think the vibe of it was interesting. The way in which it used its setting and characters to do some interesting things with its plot, with its themes, and the heart and emotion that was in there, but also the ties to music and how important it was, not only to the nature of the film as you're enjoying it, but to the characters as well. It was really well made. The performances from everybody was so good, and there are moments in that film that still resonate with me and I think about from time to time that I think will become staples of film discussion for years to come. So yeah, man, it still remains my favorite film, and yeah, that's about it, I guess. So now I turn it over to you, ladies and gentlemen. What did you think of my top 10 films of this year, and what are your top 10 films of the year? Drop them in the comment section below, or hit me up on Instagram where I'm at Hyperzone55 or at Film Focus. And yeah, thank you for listening to the podcast. If you have been following over the course of this year, I appreciate any support that I get, and definitely be sure to share this about to anybody who'd be interested in listening to film discussion of any kind. And yeah, obviously the podcast will be available in places where podcasts can be found. Obviously, we're primarily based on SoundCloud, but we're also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and all that stuff. So yeah, give me all your likes and listenings. I really appreciate it. But yeah, I will see you in 2026 for more film discussion. Hopefully I'll be able to do some more reviews, but I'm not going to be able to make any promises because time is not on my side. But yeah, until then, this is the Hyperzone 55 signing out. Peace.